I'm joined now by Dr. Cornel West, a professor at Princeton University and co-host of the Smiley and West radio show. Good afternoon, sir.
Always a blessing to be here, brother.
Thank you, sir. You did no less than 65 campaign events in the run-up to the 2008 election, supporting the president, who was then Mr. Barack Obama. But since then, you've been one of his most vociferous critics. But given the fact that he entered into the White House at a moment of severe economic crisis, can you not understand why he had to rely on people like Larry Summers and Tim Geithner to help him through that period?
I think it's a major mistake. I supported Barack Obama because I wanted to bring an end to the age of Reaganism, with greed running amok at the top, with indifference toward working and poor people and highly polarized politics. When you bring in the very people who are responsible for the financial catastrophe of 2008, tied to the oligarchs, tied to the plutocrats, tied to Wall Street, what you're actually doing is using all the enthusiasm of all of that work, all of that sacrifice, to reinforce the same cycle of bailing out Wall Street and Main Street having a jobless recovery, and that's what's so sad about it.
The president gave some comments to BET last night in response to complainants, and I guess he had you in mind. Let's hear him.
But the other thing I want to make sure that you don't just kind of slip in there is this notion that African American leaders of late have been critical. There have been a handful of African American leaders who've been critical. They were critical when I was running for president. So there's always going to be somebody who's critical of the president of the United States. That's my job, in part, is particularly when an economy is going as badly as it is right now, people are going to have concerns, and they should.
Dr. West, you opposed him in terms of policy, in terms of economics. But were you also hurt personally? Because, as I understand it, you kept calling him in the early stages of his presidency. You said you prayed for him. You prayed for him on the telephone.
Oh, absolutely.
But he didn't return your calls. Did that hurt?
Well, no, I think the only thing was just want to thank you at the 65 events. It's not a petty thing. It's personal, but I take these kind of things quite seriously in terms of the sacrifice one makes. But keep in mind...
So you were hurt?
Well, I was hurt only in the sense that when you do 65 events and there's no thank you, there's no gratitude, it says something about the person. You see what I mean? And not only that, but, you know, when you look at the speech that he gave at the Congressional Black Caucus, you know, offensive, condescending, insulting, disrespectful, stop.
He
grumbling,
said, stop complaining, stop grumbling, stop crying.
Stop crying. I said to myself, he must, oh my God, can you imagine him saying that to Wall Street people, saying that to the Catholics, saying that to the gay and lesbian brothers and sisters, saying back to the Jewish brothers and sisters? Something hit me so deeply in terms of this sense of somehow he can say what he wants to say and get along with it, because black people have been so protective, because black people know he's got vicious right-wing critics who I'm in solidarity with him against those critics. It's clear the Republican Party is a combination of mendacity as well as mean-spiritedness, but at the same time here he comes along with this kind of disrespectful language toward the very people who have been protective of him. I'm saying, what is going on? What is going on in his mind?
Will you heed what he says? Stop complaining.
Well, let me put it this way. There's a genius named Bob Marley who named his group the Wailers. There's a qualitative difference between wailing and whining. Wailing is a cry for help against the backdrop of catastrophe. That's what Wall Street had. They cried for help, they got $700 billion. Working people cry for help, poor people cry for help, get very little. Whining is a cry of self-pity associated with a sentimental disposition. Wall Street whines when it's doing very well, but they want more from the president. You see what I mean? That well-to-do groups whine when they have wealth privilege, but want more from the president. Can you imagine Brother Barack Obama going to the business roundtable and saying, stop grumbling, stop complaining, stop crying? Never. What did he say to them? He said, I'm going to deliver for you. He said, I'm sorry. I should have brought you a cake. We have got 42% of our black children living in poverty. 22% we talked about before, people living in poverty. They have a right to cry. They have a right to have legitimate grievances. So I think the president ought to apologize. I think he ought to ask for our forgiveness.
Really?
Yes, we've been subdued. The only persons who have been out there critical, Tavis Smiley, myself, and a few others, we get demonized. And keep in mind, when he says African American leaders, I want to make this very clear. I'm not a black leader. I'm a lover of black people. Indeed. I'm not a leader of black people. I'm a leader of anybody concerned about poor people and working people.
Many people would confer that status on you because of your status.
No, but the thing is, it's poor and working people. But the important thing is the love. The problem is we got black leaders who do not love black people. And we got black people who love black people who are not leaders. But I'm in the legacy of Martin King. You got to love them first, and whatever they call you.
You've been very critical of the president, but in all seriousness, sir,
yes.
Final question.
Yes.
Do you really want a leader like the serial adulterer Newt Gingrich, like the self-confessed academic failure of Rick Perry, or the peddler of myths and half-truths, Michelle Bachmann? Would you prefer that?
That's the mendacity and the mean-spiritedness we must oppose, but I refuse to accept the notion that because these folks are so mediocre and mean-spirited that we can't be critical of Barack Obama. That's why Ralph Nader and I are saying what? We're going to have a robust discussion. We want a dialogue with Barack Obama. We want to make him stronger and at the same time bring critique to bear, because we want the same influence for poor people that lobbyists have for wealthy people when it comes to Barack Obama. And why? Because in the end, both parties, Brother Martin, are tied to oligarchic and plutocratic rule. This is the problem in our society. Both parties, in that sense, too tied to big money. You see where he is now? Raising big money to the well-to-do, Goldman Sachs and others, and then telling black people, oh my God, stop crying, I'm concerned about you. Goldman Sachs concerned about black people, poor people, working people. Please.
And the people said, Amen. Dr. Cornel West, thank you very much.